With The Flash in theaters now, I have to give you my ranking, obviously, of all the DCEU films. So let's kick things off with Justice League. Joss Whedon's theatrical cut of Justice League was not that terrible. Now that time's passed and we got the actual version that Zack Snyder always had, we see how bad Justice League is. This film is messy. You can tell in the editing that they just cut a lot of things out. Studio interference and stuff left this film feeling like it was missing half the movie, because quite literally it was. It is just so flawed as a result. It's a rushed project. It is really not worth watching, in my opinion, anymore now that we've gotten Zack Snyder's full version of the film. Here's another one that had some studio interference. Allegedly, Suicide Squad does have another cut, but honestly, this film is just another mess, which is a shame because it has redeemable moments. Margot Robbie is great as Harley Quinn, and we'll get more of her as time goes on, of course, after this film released. Same with Will Smith Deadshot. I wish we can get more of him. It's a shame that it didn't live up to the hype of the amazing trailers, because honestly, this film is all over the place. Messy story and an antagonist that is completely forgettable, and it just could have been a lot better. It's one of those films that didn't really live up to potential. I have Wonder Woman 1984 next on my list. I was looking forward to this after the incredible Wonder Woman, and this sequel has good things. The casting is great. Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord works until it doesn't, in my opinion, because I do like the actor a lot, and I do think that there is a lot of fun to be had and some pretty memorable moments and action in there, and Maxwell Lord is interesting and all, but at the same time, it gets pretty messy. Cheetah is okay. Wonder Woman herself is great. Gal Gadot always continues to be great in this role, but this film feels like it went over top and it didn't really land, especially following up on a very great first movie for Wonder Woman. Next up, we've got to go with Shazam! Fury of the Gods. A little forgettable. I mean, it only came out a few months ago at the time of recording, and I feel like I already almost forgot about it, but it's good. It actually is fun. I think Zachary Levi is great in this role, though maybe he does better in the first one. This film is just not as good as the first one, basically, though it does explore some more stuff with the gods, and that's kind of interesting. I did get a lot of good laughs, and like there's a lot of heart and soul to the family dynamic between the Shazam kids and everything. So fun movie, but you know, it just doesn't stand out that much. Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice is here, the ultimate edition. Of course, this film has bad things, but it also has so many great things. Yeah, Doomsday's kind of messy, and like this Lex Luthor is not good. Jesse Eisenberg should not be playing as Lex Luthor. He's more of a Riddler. I wish we got a better version of Lex Luthor, but regardless of all that, think about it. We have a really good Batman, a really good Superman, and a really good Wonder Woman in there. The Trinity together is awesome. There are some really exciting, action-packed moments and set pieces. This film does have a lot to like about it, in my opinion. I think Ben Affleck really shines as this different take on Batman, a very dark and brutal one, and there are some really iconic moments in this film. It's pretty good, but it also is flawed, but I feel like it fits well in the kind of the middle here on my list. Next up, I have to go with Black Adam. Black Adam was so hyped up by The Rock, maybe a little too hyped up. And, you know, I like a lot about this film, the supporting cast in particular. I'm not so sure I like The Rock in this role. Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam feels like this performance that just doesn't do it for me. I'm not saying he's this great actor, but he is a lot more fun and interesting in other roles, in my opinion, in other film franchises. He didn't do it much for me, even though there's some really good action. I mean, the action is definitely on point in this film. I would say that Hawkman and Dr. Fate really stand out. They have great acting, especially Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate, a character I wish we could have gotten more of throughout this little DC Universe franchise. I think it gets messy in the end, and the villain kind of sucks, and it definitely loses its way, which is a shame because it's good until it starts to lose it. Aquaman has some really amazing visuals. I think they killed it with going underwater and Atlantis and how they designed all that. The action is really memorable, and I think Jason Momoa is just great as Arthur Curry. The supporting cast, some of them are good, some of them not so much, or in terms of just being memorable or not, you know, but it is a very entertaining movie. I like the whole storyline with the royalty and with him, the goals that Arthur Curry has to exploring his lineage and this and that. There's a lot of fun to be had. I find this to be very entertaining. What really holds it back in some ways is that it's very long, but I like it a lot, and I'm actually really excited to see what The Lost Kingdom is all about. Man of Steel was a great Superman film. It introduced Henry Cavill to the DC Extended Universe as Clark Kent and Superman, and I think Cavill really does well in this role. relatable, good Superman story, origins of him coming to Earth, him learning about himself, and then of course the other characters from Krypton coming after him and this and that with Zod. Pretty strong villain, I think. This film has gritty moments and serious stuff. It's a very mature Superman film, and I really like the way Zack Snyder directed it all. I think it lands. It's a very good movie. Shazam is next up on my list. While maybe Man of Steel is objectively better, I like Shazam more. I find this film to be just very fun. It's delightful. It feels like a Marvel movie in a good way. I really like Zachary Levi. I'm so glad they got him on board for this role. He just kills it. This adult being a kid, he has that personality. It's playful, it's funny, and there's a lot of heart. This is a really enjoyable, fun movie. Wonder Woman is really good as like a period piece. It tells a really good war story and it throws Wonder Woman in there, and I just really love the way it all works. The direction is great in this film. There's some very memorable action moments and set pieces. It's a really interesting story. The whole fish out of water vibe, I really like it because I get to have fun with that character, learning about what it's like on Earth. The dynamic between Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, they have this chemistry that really works, and I believe their relationship, and it's fun seeing the way they grow. And of course, his death, truly strong superhero film, and I really love Wonder Woman. The Flash is out now. It's brand new, and I'm gonna need a little time to really think more about it, of course, but right now where I stand, I saw The Flash and I thought it was awesome. I think Ezra Miller does a really good job in this role. Fortunately, he plays himself in two different versions, and somehow they both act together. It feels like two different characters, and it works. They actually do a good job with that. There's some really interesting story to be told about him going back in time and learning about the repercussions, learning a lot about himself as Barry Allen and as a superhero, and there's some strong lessons to be learned there in general. It's got an emotional story to tell, and there's a lot of fun to be had. It's very funny. Michael Keaton's Batman is somehow as good as ever. The new Supergirl, Sasha Calle, really kills it in that role, even though I wanted a little more of her. It's an exciting time travel multiverse type of story, and it really sticks to landing, and I'm so surprised and happy with that. After everything this film went through, it happened. The film came out, and it's good. I put Birds of Prey next, the film that has a really long title. I'm not even going to say it. Birds of Prey is one of my favorites. I feel like not everyone's going to have it so high on their list, but that's why this is fun, because it's my personal ranking, and I absolutely love this film. It's really fun. It feels very comic book-like more than some of the other DC films, and it works. Like, there's a vibe to it. It's got a bit of a Tarantino style of storytelling with going back and forth, and I think that it tells a really good story about some interesting characters who are sort of random, but then they all come together and they build this team, and they're all badass women. It tells a good story, a lot of funny stuff in there. The comedy works. It's dark too in some ways. It's rated R, and it rolls with it well. Ewan McGregor is a fantastic villain in Black Mask. Harley Quinn is just great. I mean, Margot Robbie is the best Harley Quinn I could imagine. This film is very fun and entertaining. I think it's kind of slept on, and that's why I have it so high on my list. I love Birds of Prey. Number 2 is gonna be Zack Snyder's Justice League, the longest movie ever. I mean, 4 hours or so, right? It's something that could maybe have not worked in theaters, but it happened finally after all the studio interference and all the controversy and this and that. Snyder got to really unpack his full vision and tell this whole story. It's directed brilliantly. There's so much more to Zack Snyder's Justice League than the Joss Whedon theatrical cut we got a few years prior. Zack Snyder's Justice League is an epic. It tells a great story about all of our main characters, and we get a lot more. It's expanded. There's so much more about Victor Stone, and Cyborg is a great character. Ray Fisher does really well in that role. We get a lot more out of Superman, Batman, The Flash, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman as well. An expansion on all the lore, and we get growth for our characters and some more story that can lead into other things, such as Iris West with The Flash, right? Like, that helps for seeing The Flash. This film is way longer, and it just uses its runtime so much better. You can see all the things that were just cut out, and it's a shame that all that happened. But Zack Snyder, I'm so happy he got to make this happen. It is really, like I said before, an epic. This film just has so much going on, and I absolutely love it. But number 1, The Suicide Squad is just amazing. It's objectively objectively the best thing that came out of the DC Extended Universe. I don't know if we can argue against it, really. James Gunn took what he did with the Guardians of the Galaxy films, came over to DC. Now he's about to run the whole thing, which is awesome. I love that. And Gunn killed it with this film. It is mature, it's funny, it's brutal, it's got heart, it's got really likable characters, it tells a great story, and somehow it makes all these things work that should not work for a live action film. I mean, we got some absurd characters. Just like Gunn introduced to the MCU a bunch of characters that people have never heard of, we got characters like Polka Dot Man and Ratcatcher 2, Bloodsport, Peacemaker. Like, I never heard of any of these characters, but these characters are now fan favorites. Peacemaker's a household name. The acting on all parts is great. We get so many great characters, memorable for this or that. There's so much heart to these characters too. It's very funny. The action is brutal and exciting. Jokes land. It's dark humor. Sometimes it's just really messed up. James Gunn is brilliant. I'm so happy to know that he's going to be running the show at DC, because he followed up with Peacemaker after the Suicide Squad, which was also awesome. That would definitely be very high on my list, but I didn't include it because it's a show. It's funny to think that Zack Snyder's Justice League and the Suicide Squad are number 2 and 1, because literally the superior versions of my bottom of my list with the theatrical cut of Justice League and David Ayer's Suicide Squad. So I'm really glad that DC got their things together with these two. The Suicide Squad is hilarious, action-packed, brutal, a joy from start to finish, and it has a lot of great character and story in there. It's amazing. How could you argue against that? Let me know in the comments below if you do want to argue against my picks, though. This is just my ranking. I know there's a few picks in there that you guys are going to hate. Let me know your thoughts. Why am I right or why am I wrong? What's your favorite DC Extended Universe film? What are you excited for most moving into the new age of DC films under Gunn? Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time here always, and I'll catch you guys all in the next video.